the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will be reviewing the last weekend of 2024 and some absolutely massive news to end the year. Paulo Fonseca has been sacked by Milan after their draw against Roma on Sunday evening. Sergio Conceicao is coming in his place. So huge news going into the new year. Will it change the fortunes of Milan in what has been a really miserable first half to the season? So we'll discuss all that. Elsewhere, Napoli join Atalanta at the top of Serie A. A late goal from Giacomo Raspadori beats Venezia, while Atalanta's winning run ends in a 1-1 draw at Lazio. It's Inter, though, who look like the team to beat. Where they continue their run of big wins by thrashing Cagliari. Juventus, another disastrous late mistake by Andrea Cambiaso cost them another 2 points at home to Fiorentina. We will review the rest of the Serie A weekend, and we'll have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of our questions from our patrons, plus weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. And for all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple's and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. We're on YouTube as well. All of that really helps us to grow and do more content for you guys. Okay, let's get into today's show. So only one place to start then, Nima. Milan sack Paulo Fonseca after their draw against Roma on Sunday evening, 1-1 draw. Pretty farcical sequence of events that led to his sacking on Sunday evening. He spoke to the press after the game and to the television media. Basically not known anything about being sacked, having not even spoken to the club, and then drives away from San Siro after midnight, and then tells the journalists waiting that it's true that he has actually been sacked. Something that all the rest of the media had known hours going into the game, that he was going to be sacked, and that Sergio Conceicao had already been spoken to and basically had already agreed a deal to take over from Fonseca. So that is the end of Fonseca. 12 wins, 6 draws, 6 defeats in his all of his games in all competitions. Pretty much tells the story really. 8th place in Serie A. It's been really a disaster really. Let's be honest, by the standards of Milan for Fonseca.
I think we have to look at this from very many different angles. The results haven't been good enough. I mean, just look at their position in the Serie A. There's no doubt about that. They've done well in the Champions League. They're on route for 18 points, which would seal them a spot in the top 8, which is, well, that's pretty good if you take into consideration the draw and all the other stuff, beating Real Madrid away and so on. Excuse me. But for me, there's a couple of angles to this which I want to discuss. And the first one is, aside from being, I can't get away from Milan's directors and Milan's ownership and how Milan are run. There is nothing tactically similar between Paulo Fonseca and Sergio Conceicao, other than they're both Portuguese and football managers. You had such a long time to prepare for post-Pioli. You bring in Fonseca after a bit of a shit show, really, with Lopetegui. You give him a contract, which, according to reports, means that if he's sacked within the first 6 months, he'll only be paid until June 25, which also then tells you you don't really want him. He is given some players that he wants. You give him some sort of a mercato. You don't really address the big issue. I mean, 20 million on Emerson Royal, God bless. It didn't exactly enhance or strengthen Milan. And throughout this entire process, this entire tenure, he has been hung out and left out to dry. The lasting impression from Paulo Fonseca with me from the Paulo Fonseca tenure at Milan is this is a man who was a dead man walking from day one. It was someone who this management just appointed and never really backed. He was constantly under fire. He was constantly under pressure. Never once had a director come out and defend him. Never once had anyone in senior management come out and defend the club and, by extension, him in the way that, which is standard in Italian football when there's problems. You have a coach who really tried everything to turn Milan from Pioli and a team that didn't really have any attacking identity into a team where getting Leao and Teo, especially Leao, to work in a team, in a system, and actually towards the end making it somewhat work. And then you essentially sack him at half-time. You let him go out there, talk to the media, do the rounds post-game, and then you sack him. This is... I don't know if they are just incompetent. I don't know if they are just unorganized. I don't know if they are doing this on purpose to prove a point. But my God, do they come across as a bunch of circus clowns. This on the back of a week where Jerry Cardinale, in this Harvard paper, says one of the dumbest things about crosstown rivals Inter, prompting Beppe Marotta to come out and defecate on his head verbally and embarrass him. And it's just completely... This is what it's been like under him, under Redbird, since he took over. I'm not talking about the financial stuff, which he loves to talk about, and I do think he has a point. I don't think it's that black and white. But when it comes to handling and running a football club of Milan stature, it is watching children. You're giving the keys to the Lamborghini to a 9-year-old who's drunk. That's what it comes across like. And it's from the way that they have sacked and got rid of Massara, Maldini, to how they treated Fonseca yesterday for the whole world to see, where the coach, for the first time that I can remember, announces his own sacking. I mean, I'm sure it's happened at some point before, but not at a big club like Milan. Is
it's farcical.
Truly embarrassing. And I have to say, if I look at Fonseca, we were both against his appointment. I said it the day he was appointed. I think he'll be sacked before, within the next 6 to 8 months. I think he's the wrong appointment. I thought Conceicao or Conte was the right appointment. I thought Sarri was the right appointment. But my lasting impression after having watched Paulo Fonseca these months at Milan is actually far more positive than it was when he was first appointed, because of having watched him trying to impose an attacking identity, trying to make changes and impose things that are going to benefit Milan once someone with a who's better than him tactically and better suited for this job than he is, who's a strong character like Conceicao, I think it leaves Milan in a better place, but it also shows I have a much higher respect for him as a coach. Tactically, I have a much higher respect for him as a man. And conversely, I have no belief, confidence at all in this current crop of Milan directors in their current roles. I don't think these people could organize a piss up in a brewery.
It's hard to disagree with any of that. To be honest with you, I'm in full agreement. I think there are. Well, I think there's a number of like you said, there's a number of angles to this. I have lots of respect for Fonseca as a person, and I think that's been demonstrated during these very difficult times at Milan, where he has been left alone. He has been working with, like you said, clowns. I mean, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I mean, what an incredible player he was as a player, but my God, he's been embarrassed. It's been embarrassing watching him in this role. Really, really embarrassing. It's unbelievable, really, that they put him in that place. But at the same time, regardless of all that, Fonseca was never good enough for Milan, and nothing that we've seen has changed that. Yes, he's tried everything. He's been left in a really difficult position to work with, working alone. Clearly, he doesn't get on with Zlatan. I think that's obvious they don't have a good relationship, and I don't blame Fonseca for not liking Zlatan. The way that he's tried to undermine him, going into the training ground, giving speeches to the players without even without Fonseca even knowing, going above his head. Fonseca saying one thing to the media, that they're not going to buy any more players in the transfer market a few days before the summer window closes, and then Zlatan, a couple of hours later, tells the media that he decides, not Fonseca decides, when the transfer market is closed. Like these kind of things, it made it difficult for him to work, and that's before we even get to the playing staff as well, where he's got a bunch of individualists who are, like you said, they're like children, the likes of Rafael Leao and Teo Hernandez and Tomori and Tammy Abraham, and the way that these players have behaved, it's been very, very difficult. But at the same time, it's up to the coach to be able to take control, certainly of his playing staff.
But he has done that. The problem is...
I disagree. He hasn't done that.
I think he has done that. He has done everything he can. When he needed to mark and show to Teo and Leao that their behavior was unacceptable, he did that. When he needed to do that to Teo, he did that. He has done all of that. The problem is...
It shouldn't have got there in the first place. A coach wouldn't get there in the first place.
You can't just put that square on the feet of the coach. The problem has been that he's been undermined from day one, exactly like you said. The players aren't stupid. They also read the papers. They also follow what's happening in the news. And they probably also talk to their agents. And given that they're all insiders in the club, they probably know also what's happening. Such as, you give a contract to a coach and say, if we're not happy with your work within 6 months, we'll sack you and you only get paid for the following 6 months. You have a situation where he comes out, like you said, we're not going to buy anyone. He says, I decide, not him. Like, I know that it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but again, he has been undermined continuously from the very first minute that he was appointed. And he has handled that situation with grace. I
agree. This on the personal side.
I'm not talking about personal. I'm talking also from a professional point of view. Of course, he's made mistakes. Look, again, I did not want this man at Milan. I thought it was a mistake tactically. I think he's too naive defensively for the Serie A, and definitely for a club of Milan's stature. I think it's been too inconsistent. Top four. I mean, the season was pretty much over before it started. Top four is is going to be hard. It's still doable, but the Scudetto's already over. It's been over for a month. Like, again, all of these things I get. But there's nuance here. You can't, the way that they have undermined their own appointment from day one. is just mind-boggling. Then why'd you appoint him to begin with? Conceicao was already there in the summer. Like, do you see what I'm saying? It makes no sense.
Well, this is where, again, I separate. I mean, listen, yeah, from a personal point of view or from a media point of view, the way that he handles himself in front of the media, the way that he handles himself in the face of adversity, after bad results, after things go wrong, after players do things that they shouldn't do, the way that he's handled all that, I think, has been exemplary. I've got no complaints there, and that reinforces what I think of him as a person, which is, I think he's a great guy, and I feel sorry for him on that level. But from a how good is he as a coach? As I said, as we both said when he was appointed, he's not good enough for Milan. This is not. This is a level too high from him. And yes, it's been very difficult for him with all these other things, no doubt about that. But his whole career has shown, up until taking over at Milan, that he wasn't good enough for Milan. So these other circumstances, yes, they made it even more difficult for a person that already wasn't good enough, and that's really that's the bottom line. To be honest with you, I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, in Serie A this season, 7 wins, 6 draws, 4 defeats from 17 games. Scored 26 goals in 76 in the 17 games, conceding 17 goals. They've got 27 points from 17 games. They're 14 points off the top of the table, 16 if Inter win their game in hand. And we're only 17 matches, not even halfway through the season, and he's already possibly 16 points off the top of the table, and he's 35, 8 points off the top 4. So I mean, it's not
Mm.
good enough. The performances have not been good enough,
Absolutely
and
not.
that's the bottom line. And he isn't good enough. He's not. He's not good enough for a big club. And so I think
I
that
agree
doesn't
with that.
change. That
I
doesn't
agree with that.
change regardless of all the difficult things he has had to deal with. And then that's where
No, no.
Milan made the mistake. They should never have hired him.
Well, that's precisely my point. I can't. I agree with all of that. Like we both said at the time, go back and listen to that episode when he was appointed. What we all said. I mean, I listened to it yesterday. Everything we said, both of us said, has happened on that pod. Like it's not even. It's there. Go back and listen. But the issue is, once you make a decision to hire someone, you have to give them the tools to be able to do a job. You have to be able to create an environment for that person to do their job. And you can't do that when you undermine and humiliate the person you chose to appoint from day one. So this is just, I fully understand Milan fans being furious with the owners and the directors. It feels like Scaroni is the only one who knows what he's doing. He's the only one, but he's kind of been relegated almost now to trying to maintain the peace and keeping some form of professionalism in very difficult times. The rest of them, directors, and Jerry himself, is when it comes to running a football club and a football club of Milan stature, are clueless. Again, the finances, sure, great. They've done a fantastic job, and I agree with his vision of football, and many of the things he says are wise. But he's a business guy. He doesn't understand what club and what he's bought and where he is, and that's the problem. When you have an owner, I always think of Gordon Ramsay when he talks about restaurants and people who buy restaurants who don't know anything about restaurants and thinks it's easy. You just put food on a plate and go out with it. That's how it feels with Jerry Cardinale. He looks at numbers and go, well, I know this side of it, but he doesn't have a goddamn clue about what a football club is. He doesn't have a goddamn clue how to run a football club. He doesn't have a goddamn clue how a football club of Milan stature is supposed to be run. He has bought something of which he understands nothing about, other than the numbers, which I'm sure he's good at and he's great at, and he'll probably, it'll be difficult if they miss the Champions League, but I'm sure that he'll resolve the finances side of it. There's no doubt about that. But there's more to it than that. And so far every decision they've made is wrong during
No,
their
there was
tenure.
more opposition yesterday from the fans. Certainly, at the start, especially at the start of the game, caught more calls for him to sell the club and yeah, massive opposition. They're not happy with him at all.
But I got to say one thing though. I think one saving grace for them, if they actually appoint Sergio Conceicao, because Sergio Conceicao is not Fonseca. Sergio Conceicao is Mourinho, Conte. He goes to war. If he's not happy, look, talk to Porto fans and journalists who cover Porto. There's a famous picture, or a famous before and after picture of Porto's sporting director 1 week before and after the transfer window closes. I think it was 2 seasons ago, when Conceição had been promised things on the transfer market, and he was fuming in the media about it, and fried the sporting director. There's a before and after picture of the summer and after. The guy had aged 25 years because Conceição had destroyed him. Like, this is who Conceição is. He's a fighter. He goes in there with a blowtorch to everyone and anyone who doesn't show commitment, professionalism, desire, hunger. He's tactically very defensively solid. He knows how to build a group. He knows all of these things. Just the mentality monster that he is. So I do think we're going to see a Milan with much more fight, much more grit, but at the same time, they need to also back up whatever promises they have made to Sergio Conceicao. Because if they don't, oh my God, this guy does not mess about. He doesn't mess about.
Yeah. I mean, this is where it will be interesting with Conceição when he comes in, if he is able to control the group of players in a way, or get the respect of the group of players, or get them at least fulfilling exactly what he wants on the pitch in a way that Fonseca was never able to do. We'll see, because if Conceição can do that, then obviously that's an indictment on the inability of Fonseca to be able to do that, which is something that I've always thought he obviously doesn't have that in him to be able to the things that happened earlier in the season with the players, like with the cooling break, with Leao and Teo, with the penalty incident with Pulisic, Tammy and Tomori. These kind of things don't happen in clubs where the manager has the total control and respect and influence over his players. I wouldn't expect that to happen under certain level of coach. We'll see. From what I've seen of Conceição on the outside, I would expect him to be able to control the dressing room fully in a way that probably Fonseca hasn't been able to do. Having said that, though, if he's not able to do that, then that probably reflects well on Fonseca, because it shows that, well, Conceição couldn't do it either. He couldn't control the dressing room. He couldn't take control. But what does remain is obviously the problems above Conceição's head, like with the directors and the way that the club's being led that way. That isn't going to change. So we'll have to see. I think from a point of view of trying to rescue Milan's season, getting them in the top four, this was a decision that had to be made, and I would expect Milan to certainly improve. Certainly to start with, there's always a new manager bounce always. So I would expect Milan's form to continue. I think their first game is in the Super Cup against Juventus. So I mean, yeah,
Father meets son, yeah.
Father meets son. Yeah, it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse kind of competition, but I guess it's a way for him to kind of slowly bed in and treat them as training sessions, I guess, those games. But I think it's a decision that had to be made, because with Fonseca, Milan clearly weren't going to get into the top four. There's no doubt about that.
No, there's no doubt about that. And again, The reason why I'm not hammering Fonseca on this is because we kind of expected it. Again, go back and listen to the pod we made about when he was appointed and all the criticisms and concerns we both had then, and every single thing has come to pass. So I don't want to repeat myself. So I just refer back to that. But I do think that what has happened since then is also very important, because things don't happen in a vacuum. And he really did, when the words he said, "I have a clear conscience, I gave it my all." I believe that. I don't think no one who has followed this situation can question that. And it's strange because, as I said, I think he actually comes out of this looking better than he did going into it, which is very rare when you're a coach who's just been sacked. It's not like when Rudi Garcia was sacked, and it's that just goes to show that I think that he didn't do a good job. He failed where we expected him to fail, but he also did better in some regards. And the fact that he was the person who tried and began the process of transforming this Milan after Pioli, at least in the attacking phase, into a team with clear patterns, which Pioli never had, is, even though it caused a lot of turbulence with Leao and so on, seemingly, then, that's something that is a very important work that has begun. And I'm sure that Conceicao will build upon that. I don't think that the problems in terms of the players have disappeared, but we do know who Conceicao is as a character, who we do know how he is as a person. He goes to war. He's a warrior. He's not a gentleman like that. This is a man who once beat up a spectator because he was mocking his son whilst he was there watching his son play youth football. This is who Conceicao is. He doesn't take shit from anyone. And he goes to battle, and he's prepared to almost, quote unquote, die for the group. But he expects that kind of commitment and loyalty back, not just from the players, but also from his directors.
Yeah, I think the other key, massive part of this, of Conceicao taking over at Milan, is it also is the Milan also giving the keys to Jorge Mendes, having a big influence over Milan. He's the agent of Conceicao, and but he's also the agent of Rafael Leao. I think Emerson Royale as well. So what we are seeing is Jorge
FC
Mendes.
Jorge Mendes.
Yeah, we're seeing
Mensch. As Patrick
seeing,
Kendrick will probably send me a message about pronunciation of Portuguese names.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is Mendes. And it's not just Milan. We're seeing how much influence he's now getting on Italian football as a whole, because we're also seeing it at Juventus, because Sergio Conceicao's son is at Juventus, but also Mendes is trying to take, and he publicly gave a statement the other day about bringing Antonio Silva from Benfica to Juventus, basically saying that he wants to join Juventus. I mean, I don't know if that will happen. He's too expensive. But again, this is the influence that Mendes is now exerting over two of the three biggest clubs in Italian football. So this is Mendes also. We're starting to see Mendes going to be a big key decision maker at Milan going forward, and that's not always a good thing.
No.
So because Mendes has his own agenda, and that is obviously making money and consolidating power and money at clubs rather than the actual success of those teams on the pitch. And so getting his players at those clubs. Yeah.
We'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see, and we'll have to wait and see what it goes. But I do think that Sergio Conceicao is a better decision than Fonseca, and he should have been appointed in the summer if they didn't want Maurizio Sarri, who I still maintain would have been the ideal solution. Tactically.
Yeah, for sure. We have to move on now, though. I mean, there's not much to say. point talking about the game from Milan's point of view, but from Roma's point of view, I thought that I thought it was a really good game, and I thought that Roma played their part in a really entertaining match to watch. And I thought Milan were the better team in terms of creating the chances for most of the game. But then I thought the last half an hour, Roma really took over and created lots of opportunities to win it in the last 30. And I just think the bottom line is that I think it shows that the improvements that Roma have made under Ranieri. I think Dybala has been really, he scored a great goal and he's been really excellent the last few games. Paredes becoming really important now as well under Ranieri. I think that Ranieri's doing a good job. Obviously we know the season's a write-off in terms of Serie A for Roma, in terms of like top four and everything. But I've seen enough from Roma now under Ranieri that I think that they will be a threat in the Europa League in the new year. I do like watching them now. I think that they're a team that now can kind of like fight it out with most teams, and so I was pretty impressed by Roma in this game.
I think Roma were impressive. I mean, the link-up play for when they hit the post or when Dybala scored the equalizer, the movement was actually really good. It was some of the better football we've seen from Roma in a very long time. And that flick on from Dovbyk was just stunning. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful little technical numbers we've seen, and one of the goals of the season for sure, in terms of the build-up and the individual skill of players and the ball going almost like on a string between the players. But equally, I think Milan, should probably have had a penalty. That looked like quite the barge in the first half, and it was a very entertaining game, rather open game. So I think Roma, they probably needed a win, but I think this was a good performance by Roma. In the sense that I think they were probably, if we're talking about clubs in crisis now, that our good friend Gianluigi Longari from Sport Italia reported last night that Ghisolfi's, the sporting director they appointed like 3 minutes ago, is being considered to be sacked by the Friedkins and other clueless owners as to how to run a football club on the pitch, as has been demonstrated. Great financially, agree with them in terms of commercial growth and PR and how to grow leagues and blah blah blah. But again, don't know the product that they own, don't understand the company that they bought, and think it's just that they don't understand it. But so we'll see what happens there. But I think on the pitch, Roma played some good football. I like the link up between Dovbyk and Dybala. I want to see more of that. It seems like Ranieri, is using all his experience and using all his kind of, the character he is and how loved he is at Roma to kind of get this player, these calm everything down and get everyone moving in the right direction. It looked good for, like, in terms of the attacking.
Yeah, for sure. We have to move on to Juventus now. This is a really frustrating draw for Juventus, because I thought they actually played pretty well in this game. Definitely with a better team, definitely deserved to win, but they're let down by just a clown mistake from Cambiaso at the end. I can't believe you can make a mistake like this. 2 minutes from the end, he does that under no pressure at all. He loses his foot, and I don't want people to say, "Oh, it's just unlucky." It's not unlucky. You just do not make a top player doesn't make a mistake like that, and Juventus end up conceding for the 2-2. It's unforgivable. It's the second time Cambiaso's done this. He'd done it against Lecce as well, which cost Juventus 2 points. So that he's cost them. Cambiaso single-handedly cost Juventus 4 points. It's a schoolboy mentality from Cambiaso. I can't forgive it at all. It's unforgivable. You just cannot make a mistake like that. It's absolutely infuriating to see that mistake made, and it's cost Juventus. They played pretty well in this game. Thuram scored a couple of goals. They missed some other big chances. Vlahovic missed an absolutely huge chance. De Gea's made two one of the saves of the season from Vlahovic, from De Gea, and he's made another huge save at 2-1 from Gatti. And Fiorentina really, I mean, apart from the goal from Kean, I mean, they haven't really created much at all, really, in this game. Apart from the Kean goal, where that was kind of like what Juventus' one collectively bad moment of the game, where they got left 3-on-2 at the back post. I don't know what happened with the marking there, but apart from that, Juventus weren't outstanding, but they were. It was one of their better games, and I think they definitely deserved to win the game. They can't make a mistake like that, and that's gone Cambiaso. We praise him enough. We want to talk about him, and he's probably been he's been one of Juventus's best players this season. But you cannot make mistakes like that. A top player does not make mistakes. Does not make a mistake like that. Unforced, unforgivable. It's just completely unforgivable from Cambiaso.
If I'm going to talk about Juventus from the positive aspect, I liked the midfield. I thought Locatelli, Thuram, and Koopmeiners centrally looked really good. I liked how Koopmeiners received the ball, how he moved. I thought Thuram being used in that role was also very interesting, and it's probably something that will help Juventus going forward. That their midfield that there are more goals coming from midfield, that their midfield offers more of a threat, and the midfield trio, regardless of if it's a double pivot with a 10 or a classic tridente, however they choose to play that, is going to be interesting to follow, and I think it shows that they're moving in the right direction from that aspect. But the individual mistake by Cambiaso, like you said, but we've seen worse from Gatti, but he recovered from it, and that's what Cambiaso has to do. Young players, younger players, great players, they make mistakes, they recover from them, and this is what he has to do now. He has to show that he can learn and he can grow and he can just take it on the chin and understand what he needs to do. I don't think it was as horrible a mistake that I've ever seen. I think he puts himself in a position where he shouldn't be, which is why he falls over. And it is what it is. Players learn from that, and I'm sure he will too. I just don't think this is much more different. Okay, Juve dominated ball position, but we've kind of seen them do that before. But I don't think they created near enough chances. That is acceptable. Yes, Fiorentina are a good side. They're defensively solid. We've seen so much. We've been very impressed by Fiorentina this season. Palladino's done a fantastic job and continues to do a fantastic job in rather, crazy circumstances, not even difficult, between the horrible sad passing of his mother, what happened to Bove. It's not been easy for him and the club as a whole. But I somehow am left with the impression that this Thiago Motta project under Juve continues to just limp along. They can't seem to string at this point in the season more than 1, 2, maximum 2.5 games good in a row, and they can't seem to create. And whenever they do create, they have the patron saint of missing sitters up front, Dusan Vlahovic, up front. I remember Savo Milosevic when he was at Aston Villa and they called him Misalotovic. I don't know what to make, what funny pun to make of Vlahovic then, because this guy just, it's been such a long time of him at Juve being unable to score and being able to convert and missing chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. If we're talking not good enough, that's not good enough. And a few tap-ins in the Coppa Italia doesn't change that. It's the consistency we're looking for. Juventus bought him to score 25, 30 goals a season across all games, not 10, 15 goals a season, twice against Lecce, then not score, then missed open goals for 2, 3 games, then score once against Udinese. Like, that's not what they signed him for. And this is now seriously an issue with him. But I understand the anger and frustration being raised now. I don't want to talk about Allegri because I think there's not much to say. But there is a concern here at Juve that it doesn't seem, this thing just seems to limp along. It doesn't seem to really unblock. Um, and then you have all these crazy rumors of the transfer window of Tomori coming in, Danilo going. I mean, and players. I mean, it's just a mess. And at this point, Giuntoli, more than Thiago Motta for me, is the person I'm looking at, who needs to draw some accountability here.
Yeah, I mean they need a big January transfer market. There's no doubt about that because they're gonna listen. I don't think the attack was. I thought the attack was better. If we're trying to look for progress, they definitely there was definitely progress in this game offensively. They had a 1.5 xG, which isn't outstanding, but it's definitely step forward. It's definitely good. It's still good given the level of opponent. And they had more shots and more attempts and more corner kicks and than they have done. So it was a step forward that way. But if you're talking in general, I agree with you. It's it, they are limping and they don't come across like Milan. Don't come across like a team who can put a string of wins together, and that's for sure. And the problem is that they're starting to run out of time now as well because 18 games. So we're one game away from the halfway point of the season. Juventus actually have a very hard run of
I was
matches
just about to say
coming
that.
up as well. Like in Serie A, they've got the Turin derby, but then they've got Atalanta away, Milan at home, then they've got
Napoli away.
Napoli away. So I mean, really, really difficult run of games. And if those, it, I mean, they're going to drop points in that run, more points in that run. I mean, they're already looking at where Juventus are in the table. They're 3 points off the top four, 3 points off Lazio, level with Fiorentina, who have a game in hand. Bologna can actually go above Juventus if they win their games in hand. So they're already, I mean, we can the top three are already. I think we can discount them. They're way ahead. Atalanta, Napoli, and Inter. But if those results go badly, Juventus can suddenly find themselves too far adrift, and we can see, as we've seen, that they're not able, don't seem to be able of putting a string of wins together. So Juventus are in a delicate position, and they're also the fact that Fonseca has been sacked by Milan is also bad news for Juventus because with Fonseca in charge, Juventus could kind of rest a little bit easy knowing that Milan are going to continue to drop points and they're not going to really be that much of a risk. So, I mean, if Milan win their game in hand, they're 2 points behind Juventus. So then you've got a new manager, Conceicao. You're going to get the new manager bounce. You know that Milan have got the so much potential in that squad. All of a sudden, Milan become a threat as well. So Juventus are they're in a delicate position at the
I
moment,
agree
and they need
100% with that.
a big January market for sure.
No, I agree 100% with that, especially the part about Milan being a top four contender under Conceicao. There's no doubt about that. I think he just by the sheer energy and power and mental strength that he imposes and introduces into his players, and the grit and fire and his ability to create this belief in a group will in and of itself improve Milan. But so Juve need to watch out, and also Lazio are so impressive, which we're going to get to as well. And the Atalanta are in a Scudetto race, a surprising Scudetto race. So that means they're definitely going to finish in the top four as well. So it's going to be one of Milan and Juve, like we said. I think we can almost assume now that one of them is going to, not assume, but we can almost say we're certain
Yeah,
that one of
certainty.
them,
Yeah, no
yeah,
doubt
it's a
about that. Yeah.
certainty. Yeah, that one of them is going to miss out on top four, if not both, potentially. But it's crazy. So Juve need to watch out for sure. And I wonder how much more patience there is at Juventus if this limping continues with Thiago Motta. I wonder when the earth starts shaking under his feet
Mm.
because, 18 games in, 32 points, 3 points behind Lazio. 3 points off top four. It's not the end of the world, no, but you have to be careful. You
Yeah,
have to
these
be.
these run of games are going to be very key for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Let's move on to Lazio and Atalanta. Another very entertaining game. Finishes 1-1. Lazio took the lead in the first half. Dele Bashiru late equalised 87th minute from Brescianini. Um, I thought the first half Lazio were good, were very good, and probably deserved to take the lead. Second half though, Atalanta completely dominant in the second half. I can't believe it took them until the 87th minute to get the equaliser. I was looking at the XG in this game. It's absolutely insane. Atalanta had an XG of 2.84 in this match. Atalanta had an XG of 2.84. Lazio had an XG of 0.7. So how the hell this game only finished 1-1 and 1-1 by an 87th minute goal? I don't know. But it was a very, very good game to watch. It's a result which, well, Lazio will definitely be happy with, especially considering the way the other games ended up going with Juventus and Fiorentina drawing and Milan drawing. And for them, it's a brilliant result. For Atalanta, it's a bit frustrating for them, especially with Inter winning and Lazio and Napoli winning. But the performance itself showed that they're there and they're doing well.
Well, look, it's one of the most tired cliches in football is a game of two halves, but here it's absolutely true. The first half, Lazio played wonderful football. I loved how composed they were. When we talk about Lazio more in a minute, I want to talk about Nicolo Rovella, who I think was just sublime in the opening half. In the first half. But then this is what Atalanta is so impressive, and it's not impressive anymore because this is now I think we can honestly talk about an actual growth. They are a top side in the Serie A who fight for titles. The reaction you saw from them at half time, the way they went out there and just dominated Lazio that's the thing you see from big teams. The big teams behave like that. They react. They put in that extra gear. They can just turn that on and concentrate because they know what they're supposed to do. They're so well schooled. They're so well organized. They're so well drilled. So they know exactly what they need to do. They just turn that kind of mental strength on and you see an immediate effect. And that's what we saw from Atalanta in the second half. And like you said, I can't believe it took almost to the 86th minute. I mean, I was sitting there waiting for them to not just equalize, but also win. But it turned out to be a task that surpassed their abilities on this particular evening. But I was very impressed by, again, this false nine thing in big games from Gasperini. This time, of course, he had no choice because of Retteghi's injury situation. But it was still, again, impressive. And the way that they move the ball, the way that they bully teams in the final third when they switch on that extra gear is truly, truly, truly remarkable and impressive. And yeah, I see it's, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but yeah, Atalanta are going to fight for the Scudetto until April, May. I just don't see them dropping off. It would be very surprising unless they have like two serious ACL injuries or something on key players. Then fine, that would harm anyone's chances, let alone a tiny provincial side from Bergamo. But it's look, I think they really impressed me again, and Gasperini again tactically was very, very impressive. And to react the way they did in the second half was just it was very impressive to see because it's again that's how big teams react.
Yeah, but talking of big teams, Inter.
I want to talk about Lazio just 1 second because
okay.
Nicolo Rovella. Listen. Juve have to now. I'm prepared to say it. Juve made a mistake selling him because the level that he's playing at. I don't know if it's I'll caveat this and be a bit of a coward, but I don't know if it's Baroni's brilliance, but he is so good right now. The way he ties everything together at Lazio, from the back to the front and so on, is just, it's a joy to watch right now, and it has been a joy to watch all season. That first pass, the way that he intercepts and moves and sees, it's just, again, another Italian central midfielder. Like, I'm so happy to see that between Ricci, between him, between Tonali, Barella. it's a joy to see that Italy have so many.
He was making some good charges up the pitch as well.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he didn't under Sarri never didn't really trust him or like him. But we know that's Sarri. Sarri doesn't like young players. So yeah, he
Sarri's a system coach like Conte. I don't think he doesn't dislike young players. I
well,
think
he's got a history of not using
yeah.
young players. That
I don't
he
know.
doesn't like young players. But
No,
I
I don't
mean,
think he's got anything against young players. I mean, he launched the careers of players who were young.
at
My
the big
point,
clubs,
but he's a system coach.
he's never
But he's
really
a system
trusted.
coach.
Yeah, but I mean, at the big clubs, he's never trusted young players. That's what I mean. Like at his bigger jobs, he's never like Chelsea, definitely at Lazio as well. He just doesn't really like them. I think Bastoni has given that trust to Rovella, and yeah, it's.
Baroni, you mean? I think he said Bastoni, or did I hear wrong? I was
Did I
like,
say Bastoni? Oh,
yes, I was like, Bastoni's gone to Lazio. What the hell's going on?
Baroni. Well, talking of Bastoni, he scored a great header for Inter. Inter showed again in this game why they're so head and shoulders the best team in Serie A and such strong favourites for the Scudetto. I mean, this was such a powerful performance. Battered
After
battered Cagliari. I mean, the first half not perfect, but I mean
it was
overall
bad.
dominant, totally dominant, and even Lautaro back to scoring as well. It's 5 wins in a row, big wins as well. Like they're getting big victories, racking up huge XGs, like 3 points something in this game again. I mean, they just look unstoppable right now.
Look, Inter. The first half was poor. We can't joke. Like let's not. Let's keep it real. Inter did not create that much, and Lautaro did his absolute best Roberto Gagliardini impression by missing a sitter that was just my mouth was open as to how that was even possible for him. And it was a game where Inter just show that when again, like I said, like but that's what big teams do. They in the second half, immediately in the second half, they turned it around, and they started they started doing what they can do, but at a higher tempo with much more concentration and higher outcomes in terms of no mistakes, which was lower in the first half. They made too many unforced errors. But again, the movement, they're such a well-schooled, well-oiled machine that even when they're having a bad day, when Di Marco's having a bad day, when Lautaro's having a bad day, when whoever's having a bad day, their basic level of play is so high, and they all know what they're supposed to do, that they just by simply playing at 50-60% of their ability can do this to teams. Then in the second half they turn it around by playing to maybe 75-80% of their ability, and they win deservedly and just kick the feet under pull the feet under Cagliari's feet, pull the rug under Cagliari's feet rather, and just cruise to victory. They've got, like you said, 5 wins in the Serie A. I think it's if I'm not mistaken, they haven't conceded. Well, they've only conceded 1 goal in those 5 wins, and that was against Parma in the 3-1 win at home after Darmian scored an own goal. So they even scored the opponent's goal for them in that game. But look, it's Inter moving in the right direction. They have the Supercoppa, and then they have rather interesting easy few games. They got Venezia away, Bologna at home, Empoli at home, Sparta Prague away, Lecce at home, before the difficult run starts for them. And they need to rack up undramatic, easy wins where they don't spend a lot of energy. And I think that's kind of where Inter are headed right now. But yeah, the quality they possess is when they get going is truly a joy to watch, and how Inzaghi has built this kind of machine, a well-oiled machine, where everyone knows what they're doing.
45 goals scored in so far this season, 17 games is mad. They've got the best number of goals scored and the best goal difference by a mile as well in the league. So yeah, they're looking great. Quite a big difference in goal difference between Inter and Napoli, that's for sure. Double the goal difference, Inter over Napoli, because Napoli get another 1-0 win, this time against Venezia. Not a particularly great performance from Napoli. They really did struggle to create in this game. I mean, they missed a penalty by Lukaku, and it took until the 79th minute from Raspadori, who might even leave in January, to finally win the game for Napoli. I mean, they got the win, but not a good performance from Napoli at all.
No, it absolutely was not a good performance. Lukaku missed a penalty, or I don't know if he missed a penalty or if Stankovic saved it.
Well,
Because
I mean, literally saved it, but yeah, it wasn't
yeah,
a good penalty.
no, it wasn't a good. It wasn't well, every penalty that doesn't go in isn't a good penalty. But I'm so impressed by Stankovic. The past, how well he's improved, and how well he, how many strides, how big of a strides he's taken the last 2-3 seasons, and how he's made that number one spot at Venezia his own, and as a shot stopper, how good he is, and how imposing he is, and how much character he does. And what I like in a goalkeeper is someone who has character and dominates the area, who takes control of his defenders and his defense and his area, and he really does that for such a young age. So it's really, really impressive. But if we talk about Napoli, then look, they had an XG of 1.97. They had 4-5 big chances. I think they had 25 shots in total. So they did create, or they did try to create. The problem is, like it usually looks like with Conte's sides this year, or at this point of the season, it looks boring, dry, limpy, but they get the job done. But I do want to give credence to, and I do want to validate the argument that many people make, that yes, you continue to win despite not playing well, and you're not impressing, and this isn't sustainable. I do agree with people who say that. I think it would be unfair and disingenuous not to validate that argument, because if it doesn't start unblocking like it usually does in February onwards for Conte teams, then they're not going to win the title. But so we need to just wait. I think February, if he doesn't start, if Conte's Napoli doesn't start looking like Conte's like Conte's teams usually do, when it becomes much more fluid, when it becomes much more, when the key players really start shining and coming into their own, that's what I'm waiting for. January, February, like end of January, from the mid-January, from the Atalanta game and onwards, when they've got Atalanta, Juve, Roma 3 in a row. That's what I'm looking at. But other than that, there's not much to say. It's Venezia at home. It's a late win again, which builds belief and confidence. And Conte thrives off of these kinds of fiery wins where his substitute comes on and scores the winner and runs into the crowd and he's running down the sidelines. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of group he wants to lead, a group of fired up people. Because that's how he is. So it's an important win. It's a clean sheet. They've only conceded 12 goals in 18 games. That's the best in the Serie A. And he, and if you take into consideration that 4 of those 12 came against, wasn't it Hellas? Not 4, but
3.
Was it 3? Sorry, yeah. Like 3 came in the opening game against Hellas Verona. It just, and then of course 3 against Atalanta. So half of those goals conceded coming in 2 games. That's a very good place to be for this project.
Yeah, and of course they're now joint top with Atalanta. Although Inter win their game in hand, Inter will go top 2 points ahead of both Atalanta and Napoli. And the rest of the Serie A weekend fixtures: Empoli 1, Genoa 2, Parma 2, Monza 1, Udinese 2, Torino 2, and then we've got on Monday Como, Lecce and Bologna against Verona.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted one comment there. Torino, Ricci scoring. Udinese continue to not lose. and get points. And Balotelli's tenure almost coming to an end at Genoa after Vieira took over. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? Who could have possibly guessed that?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he's only got scraps off the bench.
and of course Monza, despite the coaching change, they lose. I wonder if Monza don't get relegated now. I don't know what you think about that, but it's starting to smell Serie B
Well,
about that.
they've got 10 points and they're 5 points from safety, but from Hellas and Como, who have a game in hand. So yeah, they've got to be careful there because they're starting to drift. They could soon be too far away if they're not careful.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie Ass of the week. Okay, so Baggio of the week. Nima, what you got?
I have to go with Roma's goal, like the movement, Dovbyk's backheel flick to Dybala's one-time finish with the wrong foot. That it was stunning. I love that. I love goals like that. When you combine scare me with individual brilliance and skill, is just that's just applause all round. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful goal. So for me, that was the Baggio of the week.
I'm going to go for De Gea's save from Vlahovic, which was just insane. One hand, but such a strong hand. Premface of the week. I've got one, nothing to do with Italian football. This is absolutely insane. Made more so because I absolutely detest these two weirdos. So Chrissy Teigen and John Legend went
The
to watch.
musician John Legend.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chrissy Teigen and John Legend went to watch Arsenal versus Ipswich in the Premier League this week, or last week. And Chrissy Teigen wore a Chelsea shirt with an Ipswich scarf. She claimed in an interview given at the end of the game that she thought Chelsea and Ipswich were the same team, and it was a complete car crash.
Go blue.
Yeah, it was a complete car crash of an interview where it was clear. It was so clear that they both had no idea about football at all. They did not have a clue, and so they were getting
Who the hell
completely.
is Chrissy Tiger? Like
That's
Chrissy?
it's the wife of John Legend.
Okay.
She's a complete weirdo. She got cancelled a few years ago because it came to light some tweets that all these tweets that she'd been tweeting about sort of like 10, 15 years ago, where she was basically ogling over little young kids.
Ew.
Yeah, let me just say that. You can Google it; it's all on record. You can all see it. And she was getting excited about, oh, I love this little kid. What they're wearing, it was disgusting. It's actually disgusting. So the fact that they're even interviewing this woman is prem-face enough.
I have no idea who this woman is.
She's the wife of John
No, I know
Legend.
now, but I've never I don't. But then again, I don't know. It's funny because I'm so out of this bubble they've created of these like celebrities.
Celeb culture, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so out of it. I was watching. I was just randomly scrolling on Instagram, and I see these people with like millions of followers, and I don't have a bloody idea who half of them are.
Yeah, I know.
I've never heard of half of them, and it's like I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
But wearing an Ipswich scarf, thinking they're Chelsea, she should be Baggio of the week. Like that's genius. They're blue, and I can just hear this like dumb chick voice saying it as well. Like, oh my god, it's this kind of, oh well, they're blue and I like the color, and do you know what I mean, like that kind of cheerleader voice.
Yeah. Well, the thing is
it's
that everybody was ripping her, and then she went on she got really like angry that everybody was taking the piss out of her, and then she went on like this social media rampage afterwards, like trying to prove to people that she does know about football, and like she
Yeah.
posted a picture of her like when she was like 15, like with football boots on, saying, "See, there's all those people."
Oh
say
my,
I don't know."
you're joking.
Yeah.
Why do you not send these things to me? Like this is what you should do to me.
I know.
This is, oh my god, this is so funny.
Oh god, making me ill. Yeah, so
but that's funny.
yeah, that's Premface of the week. And Serie A's of the week.
It has to be Milan. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but the Milan's directors and the way they've handled everything from well, for the last 6 months at least, from the how Paulo Fonseca was handled to how they have behaved towards him to just to the fans, that just everything about them, about how they've handled on the pitch, has been just one giant Serie Ass after another. And it really, they I hope for Milan's sake and also for Italian football's sake that they get their shit together, because Serie A and Italian football needs a Milan whose house is in order. We need a Milan v Juve v Inter title race. It's good for the Serie A. We haven't had that in a long time.
Yeah, well, it's not going to happen this season, that's for sure. It's not going
New.
to happen this season. Right, let's leave it at that. Thank you everybody for listening. We will see you in the new year. Everybody have a great New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Let's hope for everyone that the 2025 is a great year for you all and for the world as well. That would be nice. But yeah, until next time, ciao, ciao.